Today we've got a presentation from the Kansans for Responsible Solar Committee. We will also approve the minutes toward the end of the session. I'll try to get the presentation over in time so we have time for questions for our presenters today and to approve the minutes. Hopefully the rest of the committee will wander in after lunch, is usually the case. But with there's not that much solar power in the state yet, but there is more coming, and this group has been working together to help to educate people around the state about some of the issues with solar, and so I appreciate them coming today. And so we're going to start off with Carrie Brandon, who's a rural resident and works with Kansans for Responsible Solar, and she's a chairperson. Carrie, welcome to the committee. Oh, by the way, just for each conferee come up, state your name for the record because this is being recorded. And for anyone who's watching online who'd like to see the PowerPoint presentation, go online to kansaslegislature.org, navigate to the committees tab, look under the Senate committees. Second page of Senate committees is public utilities. And then look for the committee testimony tab. Click on today's date and you'll be able to see this presentation. Okay, Carrie, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, do-over. My name is Carrie Brandon, and I am a rural resident of Douglas County, and I am also one of the chairpersons for Kansans for Responsible Solar. So good day, Senators, and we really appreciate the invitation, Chairman Thompson, to come and present to you today. Because like he said, although we're kind of used to the wind projects at this point, the solar, very large scale solar is now a part of regulations and things that we need to think about. So today we want to talk to you about utility scale solar power facilities and why there's a critical need to provide protections to ensure that these projects are sited and developed in a responsible way. And we like to use the word responsible. So who's the group before you today? We have citizens from all over Kansas pretty much. We definitely have Johnson County, we have Douglas County, Wabaunsee County, Pottawatomie County, Franklin County, and some of the townships within those counties as well. It was really nice that everyone cares enough that they took work off and they drove up here today. That's how important this is to the citizens, the registered voters of the state of Kansas. The speakers today, most of them are solar task force members, Kansas Responsible Solar Task Force members, and we represent those citizens across our entire state. We're crying out for thoughtful and enforceable industrial utility scale solar regulations, and I need to make sure that I continue to paginate through this. You're probably not going to be able to read that, but in your packets, which Sheila distributed, you should be able to read this. Citizens who are crying out for thoughtful and enforceable regulations, citizens who are asking the state for help to ensure the health, safety, and quality of the life of all Kansans, to protect our agriculture, our livestock industries, our agribusinesses, our wildlife, our environment, our history, our property values, and our long-term growth and well-being. The document that Sheila provided has tons of information, like I said, so please visit the links and dive in deeper as you find that you have more time, right? We provide a lot of information, and it's very good information curated by citizens of the state of Kansas. Before we start our presentation, I do want to make sure that we define what we're actually discussing today, because I think there's a lot of confusion around solar, the word solar. We're talking about industrial utility scale solar power facilities, which the energy industry often likes to refer to as solar farms, but we don't like that term farm because it's truly not a farm, it's a power facility. So this is our focus. We are not focusing on personal and limited scale solar projects like, rooftop, garden solar, businesses that want to put solar on their properties to power their businesses, anything that is 20 acres or less. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the big ones. So you'll hear the words responsible and irresponsible used, and we want to be very clear that citizens understand the need for renewable energy, that we understand us right here, these people, we all understand the need for renewable energy, and we're not opposed to green energy, but it has to be developed responsibly. So that's what we're here to talk about. And we want to also discuss what makes industrial scale solar responsible versus irresponsible. So the first thing that we want to talk about is siting, because that is probably the biggest concern of all, is where energy companies come into communities and decide that they want to propose to site these massive power facilities. So the first map that I'm going to show you, we'll paginate forward again. This is an example of an irresponsible siting, and there's many reasons for that, but this particular project is the NextEra Energy project that they're desiring to site. It's a 320 megawatt industrial utility scale solar power facility, and it straddles County Line Road on top of populated Johnson and Douglas County unincorporated territories. So there are over 200 homes in less than 0 to 1 mile of the footprint. So this is a high growth area. It's full of family homes, new construction, agriculture, agribusinesses, livestock operations, those things I mentioned earlier. It's a very alive area. The approximate combined value of the homes within that area, just 0 to 1 mile of the project footprint, is over $80 million, and it's climbing due to new construction. So these are a lot of homes. They produce a lot of property tax revenue for both counties annually. So let's take a look. Now, okay, so, and I don't know if you can see what I'm talking about here, if this pointer's working, but see all the little icons, the blue and the green? Those are the 200 plus homes I'm talking about. And that red blocked out area, that is the proposed 320 megawatt power facility. It's right smack dab on top of this community. So let's talk about what responsible looks like in contrast. And so what I'm going to share here are similarly sized projects that are already in operation. So this one here, this is a 460 megawatt, 3,927 acre facility in California. It's sited just north of the US-Mexico border, okay? The human population homes that are located near it are completely east of the development footprint. The facility is not on top of a population center. It's offset, and that's responsible. Offsetting it, not putting it on top of and around surrounding homes. The second one that I'm going to share that's responsible, and there's many to share that are responsible, is a 200 megawatt, 2,001 acre facility in Georgia. The population of the homes, again, are located east of the development footprint. And the facility, I'm sorry, yeah, which one are we looking at? This Georgia? Yeah, and the facility, again, is offset, as you can see. So the red blocking area is offset to the population center. And then the last one, and this is the best scenario, right? This is 300 megawatt, 2,297 acre facility located in Nevada in the middle of the desert where people do not live. So I just want to point out what irresponsible looks like versus responsible in terms of siting. The other thing that I want to share is even the federal government, the EPA, encourages responsible siting. And what they mean by that is incentivizing energy companies to utilize brownfield sites first. So that's what we're looking for here. We're asking the state to encourage energy companies, the counties are already doing it when they can, to use brownfield sites, contaminated grounds. So if you look back over to the Douglas County, Johnson County project, which is on the right of this EPA slide. See that yellow block at the top? That's a sunflower ammunition plant, which has been, dead for many, many, many years. They don't know what to do with it. It's a brownfield site. It's contaminated. They can't clean it up. Perfect place to put utility scale solar. And Savion has gone ahead and proposed development there. Oh, I'm sorry. This particular slide it got added, and I apologize for that. Sorry, Sheila. I'm making Sheila's life difficult. But that DeSoto, Kansas annexed 6,000 acres of that brownfield site specifically to allow Savion to develop utility-scale solar on it. That's responsible. That's a good thing. Not everybody's still happy about it, but it's way better than having it on top of homes. So I am running out of time. There's a lot more information that I wanted to share, but I also want to give an opportunity to others to speak, especially those that drove in from Wabunsee and Potawatomi counties, because they have some pretty impactful information to share about what they're being presented with in their own neck of the woods, and it's pretty remarkable. So I'm going to turn it over to them, but I do want to emphasize something that's really huge and important is transparency before I hang up here. And what I mean by transparency is when energy developers, just like with wind, come into communities, they're signing ground leases well ahead of the public even being aware of what's going on. And that is not good. Because what we're doing as citizens is we're paying close attention often to comprehensive plans, and we're basing our investment decisions, whether we build a home, whether we choose to build a business based on the demographic that comprehensive plan is going to support long term. Those are the reasons why we're making investments in our area. So when energy companies are allowed to use conditional use permits to completely change the character of the city, that is doing a lot of harm to people, and we do not have any visibility to it. So that NextEra project from before, that actually started the first ground lease in July of 2018. You can look it up, it's public record. The public did not know anything about it until Lawrence Journal World published a scoop article and a small map, and people started to talk about it in August of 2021. At that time, me personally, we had already broken ground. So in 2018, when they signed their first lease, ground lease with a landowner, that was the exact year and a month that we broke ground on our $1.5 million home that we worked our butts off to build. And we're not happy about it. And property taxes went up too, to boot. And our property values have already gone down, because everyone realizes the pending potential 3,500 plus, 320 megawatt NextEra utility scale power facility, solar, that is going to potentially be going in right on top of us. This is why we're here today, and we appreciate being able to enlighten you guys. So with that being said, I do want to allow time for Anthony and Maddie, and it's Hegert, and they are a father and daughter. They are generational farmers, right? And they're from Wabunsee and Potawatomi County. So I'm going to allow them to come up and take the rest of my time.
Quick question. Is their presentation on this PowerPoint?
No, it's just verbal.
So this is your PowerPoint then, Carrie?
Is that okay?
It's fine, yeah. So we'll instruct the committee, I guess, to look through the rest of this, or will there be other people?
So my portion of this presentation goes through laws to promote transparency and timely information disclosure. Okay. And then I was going to cover electromagnetic field radiation. All of this stuff, we've built a website, and you can go and you can find all the information at your leisure when you can find more time to read up. So I'm sure we'll be back.
Very good. Okay, so I'll let you turn it over, and please introduce yourselves to the committee.
I'm Anthony Hegert. I'm from Wabunsee County. I've been farming for my whole life, basically. It's been a family farm. And they just proposed a 2,000-acre solar farm in Wabunsee County along the river. They've already got 2,000 acres going in Pot County right across the river, which we all farm. Actually, there's 3 family farms in here, multi-generations. My son's coming on, my daughter's coming back, and it's right in my area. It's my land. I got the transmission lines. So they're working really hard to get it, and I think there's better places to site them. Jeffrey Energy Center has 12,000 acres up there. Why can't they start there? Why has it got to be on the best prime irrigated ground? And I've been using the regenerative ag practices and rebuilding my soil, and now it's all for nothing. At our local planning commission meeting, next era introduced, they wanted a 3,100 megawatt farm is what she said. That's over 30,000 acres when it's done. Currently, they're just proposing 1,900 on one side and 2,000 on the other side. But where does it stop? I mean, what about the local economies, the co-ops, the grain elevators? It's going to ruin all small town America where we moved out, where we built our life. And I got to quit. I'm going to let my daughter take over.
My name is Madeline Hiegert. I am a 16-year-old Wabansie County resident. I live on our 3-generation family farm. Ever since I was little, I fed cattle, harvested crops, and enjoyed the beautiful views of Kansas. At our local commissioner meeting, they proposed a large-scale solar site. This solar site will take away our ground. It will take away our livelihoods. By putting this solar site onto a farm ground that we have had for 3 generations, it's not only taking away from the crop cash revenue from the county, it's taking away our futures. My brother, after the meeting, he came out in tears because his future is on that land. That land that my father spent most of his entire life building up for us is being taken away by these large-scale solar sites. My brother, he is 18 years old. He plans to come back. He plans to start farming. These solar sites are not only taking away our future, they're killing my father because this is what he spent his entire life. He is not just going to give up. He has spent his blood, sweat, and tears to build this farm for us to be able to take over. Many of the farmers here today have sons and daughters who are willing to come back and take over to keep our ecosystems and our farms thriving. These solar sites are taking away all of that. They belong in other places that are responsibly placed. These solar sites are wanting to be irresponsibly placed on our farm ground that we have spent, like I said, our whole lives developing. Farming is not just an occupation. It is a lifestyle. And it's going to be my lifestyle once I graduate high school, go to college for 8 years. It's my life and my future that these solar sites are taking away. I just want to end with solar sites don't feed the world. Farmers do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next on the list, we have Alan Anglin. And Alan's also a rural resident with Kansas for Responsible Solar.
That's right, Alan Anglin, Johnson County. I'm going to talk about health and safety. It's a hard act to follow because...
And that will be right back up on the PowerPoint.
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
Health and
So it's
safety.
page 12 of the PowerPoint for anybody following.
Thank you, Senator Thompson.
Okay.
All right, and thank you all for having us today. On health and safety, I'll talk briefly about solar panel composition and then talk about battery energy storage. Industry advocates generally consider best case scenarios when they talk about utility scale solar. We live in Kansas, though. We're famous for our thunderstorms, our hailstorms, tornadoes. Such storms can damage solar panels, resulting in materials getting released into the environment. Solar panels are made of different materials. One of the safest is crystalline silicon. Silicon is non-toxic and doesn't pose hazards. But other solar panels made out of cadmium telluride. Cadmium telluride is highly toxic, accumulates in the body, and in sufficient amounts can lead to lung, kidney, and liver failure. The good news about cadmium, if there is one, is that it does not leach. It's stable in the environment. The bad news is it lasts. So if the panels are broken and they have cadmium, surrounding soil can be contaminated and would require removing the soil in order to clean it. Will operators take such measures, or will they simply replace the panels? Who knows? Consider the possibility that the land used for utility scale solar could later be used after decommissioning for a school, a playground, homes. Children could be harmed from contaminated soil. New advances in solar efficiency may pose risk as well. There's solar-related news media are hyping the efficiency gains with the use of lead halide perovskites and lead solanide in the manufacture of solar panels. Lead halide is not stable. It degrades over time and leaches into the soil. Lead selenide can leach too. Each comes with the risk of getting lead into the environment. Strong protections are needed to ensure that today's utility-scale solar facilities don't become tomorrow's brownfields. Legislation should be passed to either ban the use of toxic materials or provide strong enforcement measures to ensure the safety of people living in proximity to solar facilities are safe. This would also ensure the safety of future generations that might live on decommissioned sites. Let's turn to battery storage for a moment. One of the problems utility scale solar has is that peak energy output and peak energy demand do not coincide. Peak production is in the middle of the day when the sun is at its brightest. Peak consumption's later in the afternoon and early evening hours. To address this, more and more utility-scale solar facilities are being built with battery energy storage systems, also known as BESS. BESS facilities consist of modules of metal buildings that look much like the trailers that are hauled behind big rigs. Inside are racks that are filled with lithium batteries. Lithium, as you know, is toxic and flammable. So fire hazards are an obvious concern. In one event in Arizona in 2019, 4 firefighters were injured when they responded to a BESS fire. The metal building had become filled with hydrogen gas, and when they responded, they opened the door, oxygen got in, and there was an explosion injuring the firemen. Last September, the 300 megawatt BESS facility at Moss Landing Solar Facility in California experienced smoke from an air handler. The heat suppression systems failed, resulting in scorched battery racks and melted wires. Fortunately, humans weren't harmed. However, that BESS facility, a 300 megawatt facility, remains offline for repairs. Another incident occurred in June of last year in Morris, Illinois. Over 1,000 homes had to be evacuated while fire crews tried to put out a lithium battery fire. Firefighters applied Purple K, a chemical that's used to suppress the toxic smoke and put out the fire, but to no avail. Eventually, they had to pour a 30-foot by 40-foot concrete pad to put out the fire of Portland cement. The EPA was called in to monitor public safety, and after 5 days, residents were allowed to go home. The EPA would continue to monitor testing air quality for 3 months. Now, for clarity, to make sure this is understood, that lithium fire was not at a solar facility, but it does indicate the problems that firefighters will have in the event of lithium fires, lithium battery fires, and that is exactly what you would have with a BESS facility. 2 safety organizations have stepped up to address the dangers of BESS fire impacts. One is Underwriters Laboratory. They have a standard that it's called UL 9540. This standard includes inverters and battery packs, provides standards for integration of components, software and hardware controls, and includes a fire system test standard for large storage systems. Compliance to this standard should be required by law. Additionally, the National Fire Protection Association has a fire safety standard for the prevention of an extinguishing of fires at battery energy storage facilities. It's called NFPA 855. It provides standards for correctly and accurately labeling systems, standards for size and separation installation, and for fire suppression and control. Compliance to this standard should also be required. I'm going to turn it over to Dan Fuller, who will talk about herbicides, pesticides, and stormwater runoff.
State your name, Dan, and continue on the PDF, correct?
Well, this is, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All righty. Thank you.
Dan Fuller. I have been in farming for 45 years. On the ground that I'm going to talk about, I can't say that this is the way it is all the way across the state, but livestock and row crop I've done the last 19 years. I planted a vineyard. I've had a vineyard in. And I had to get a private applicator's license from the state of Kansas to apply herbicides, pesticides. And I wanted to talk to you about the herbicides that would be used on a site like NextEra is going to be putting in. It controls like 2,4-D, Tordon would be some of the ones, any of the ones that would be in a volatile ester base or an anamine base. All those volatilize when it's sprayed above 74, 75 degrees. When it gets there, it volatilizes, changes into a gas cloud. Then if you have humidity, it forms a cap, and that gas cloud can't dissipate into the air. So it hangs low and it drifts, and it will do tremendous damage. You know that this company is in it to make money, so they're going to buy the cheapest herbicide possible, and that's going to be 2,4-D or Tordon that controls brush, trees, vines, all of that type of stuff. So I just wanted to let you guys know about that. My vineyard's about 400 yards from where part of this NextEra is going to be going in at. and I plan on losing my vineyard if they start spraying. And the Vineyard Winery it supports 3 families. So my kids are involved in it. And the other thing is the state of Kansas, they won't let the counties regulate what kind of herbicides are applied in that county. So you have to know that in Johnson, Douglas, some of these other counties, it's becoming so urbanized now. There's so many people moving in. There's very few livestock operators left in some of these counties. There's one dairy farm left in Johnson County. That's Norris's dairy farm there in Edgerton. So I don't understand why they wouldn't allow the counties to start controlling what herbicides are used in that county. I've had 3 different filings with the Ag Department on herbicide damage on the vineyard. And just to give you an idea, it takes, they have 4 to 5 investigators for the whole state of Kansas. So, they show up 5-6 days after you've registered a complaint. They come out, they take pictures, pull samples, send the samples in, and the samples take 3 months to get the results back. So by that time, it's been a total waste of time even dealing with them. So that's going to give you an idea of the problems. The soils that in this area that I'm in are called Sibleyville soils. That's a very sandy loam type of soil. And by some of the regulations I've seen, NextEra wants to grade the ground. They want to kind of grade it level. Most of this ground in the area that we're in has either a 5% grade, maybe up to 7 to 12% grade. And if you guys don't understand what that grade is, if you take a level line 100 foot out and measure down or up, whatever that distance is your grade. So if they want a 5% grade, that's going to be 5 foot of drop in 100 foot. And on sandy loam soil, there's no weed or soil retention cloth that's going to hold that sandy soil if you got a 4 or 5 inch rain all at once. And also on that soil, it's going to take, since it is a sandy loam soil, it drains real well. It's going to take at least 2 years for them to get any kind of vegetative growth to really hold that soil. So in the meantime, in those 2 years, you're going to have continually runoff. And the areas have floodplains in them. There's 2 floodplains that's drained to the Call Valley watershed. One goes to the Hillsdale watershed. So as this soil washes off, this 3,000 to 4,000 acres they're wanting to put in, you can plan on that floodplain getting bigger because that soil is going to wash in and shallow that floodplain and make that water go out farther. And the water tables in the areas that we're in is anywhere from 6 to 22 foot where you can hit water because of that soil. It really has really good wells anywhere you go. And all these numbers and stuff come from the Kansas Geological Survey Department. The last thing I would say is some of the herbicides that they use too are granular. And when you take your private application license, you'll find out that granular, you have to be very careful with it because it's a time release type of herbicide, and it's sitting on that sandy loam soil. It'll go right down to the water table, and it states right on the bags of like Tordon granulars and that not to be used on sandy loam soil. A neighbor down the road in about 1980, Kansas City Power and Light came in and spread Tordon crystals down, and the only way they knew that it contaminated their well, because they had greenhouses, that their plants started to die, and they had them come out and check it. In the meantime, 3 months they've been drinking that water. So the state's got to really step in on this herbicide problem. Thanks.
Thank you, Dan. Up next, Cindy Fitzgerald, who's the CORT Director of Insurance Housing, also a rural resident.
Mike, actually, you get me for a little bit.
Oh, okay, okay, very good. Back to Alan Anglin.
I am not Cindy.
This is a moving target here, so.
All right. We'll talk about some of the county impacts. Solar developers like to talk about how much revenue will be generated from the tax revenue. A glance at the website of a proposed solar facility in Johnson County says it'll generate $40 million of revenue. Now, if you read the fine print, that's $40 million over a 35-year period, and it's an estimate. That estimate in September, when they filed with the Johnson County Planning Commission, it was $10 million. So I don't know how it got to be from $10 million to $40 million, but it did. So the point is that these estimates are not reliable, and with a 10-year tax abatement, the tax revenue benefit is a long time coming. This puts local counties in a pinch because they won't realize the benefit for 10 years, and yet they've still got to process the applications. They've got to monitor the construction, and they've got to monitor the operations, ensure that there's compliance. So, as a consumer of electricity, I'm concerned these projects don't make economic sense without the tax abatements. And then after a 10-year period, operators will use the threat of going out of business to justify requests for significant rate increases. These projects should make economic sense on their own without the tax abatements, and they should be held accountable to lowering the energy costs that they say that they will bring. Now, utility scale solar should have responsible enforceable regulations. We're not just concerned about, we're concerned about the character of the community. We stand to lose that when going from an agricultural nature to an industrial nature in the community. There's certain things that can be done, though, to help that. Certainly the size of facilities, the maximum project size is a key factor. If you're sitting there and you're surrounded by on three sides or two sides by a huge project, and it goes for 2,000 or 3,000 acres, you no longer live in an agricultural area, you live in an industrial area. So limiting the size to 500 acres would make it where it's more reasonable for people to be in and around utility scale solar. Solar developers will tell you they need bigger farms. They need 200 megawatts, 300 megawatts or more. I recently looked at the NextEra website, doing some research, and found that they had 72 utility scale solar projects that were in the development phase. 53 of these, about 75%, were 125 megawatts or less. 25 of the projects were 50 megawatts or less. In their home state of Florida, there were 43 projects that were either in operation or in construction, and there was not one project greater than 75 megawatts. Now that equates to about, using 8 megawatts per acre, it equates to about 600 acres. Now, there are developers who want you to think that we need to turn our state into a landscape of black glass and towering windmills. And if you don't do so, the planet will be ruined. Never mind what's happening outside Kansas, never mind what's happening outside the United States. We're looking to you as our elected officials to represent the citizens of our state and ensure progress and development are done responsibly. We have a beautiful state. When the song America the Beautiful plays and I hear the lines, "Oh, beautiful for spacious skies," I don't just think of Kansas. I have images of Kansas. Let's not destroy the landscape in a mad rush for corporate profits. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. And now on to Cindy Fitzgerald, I believe. And just state your name, Cindy.
Hi, my name is Cindy Fitzgerald. I am a resident of Douglas County. I am the Director of Insurance Housing for Court Furniture, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company. I have personally been involved in almost every natural and man-made disaster for the last 20 years. I've studied weather, I go to conferences, so I'm very well aware of what's going on with our climate. I'm here to talk to you about the different counties' comprehension plans, which they're a roadmap and they're critical for decision-making by landowners, farmers, businesses, and families. How is a comprehension plan used? The comprehension plan provides a vision for the community. It is used as a policy guide that identifies the community's goals for directing future land use decisions. The plan is also used by property owners to identify where and how development should occur, by residents to understand what the city and county anticipates for future land uses within the county. Now, I've read a few of these, and they're no less than about 300 pages, by the way. The comprehensive plan allows the decision makers to look at the entire community and the effects of land use decisions on the community and citizens as a whole, to determine whether individual proposals are consistent with the overall goals of the community and the citizens. The purpose of zoning of property rural to rural districts is to provide for agricultural areas with single-family residents, maintain or enhance the rural character of the area, be sensitive to the physical characteristics of the sites, facilitate compatible agricultural use, protect agricultural areas, protect natural resources, minimize negative impacts on existing roads and the infrastructure in the area. The road I live on, 2300 Road, that would run right up to Nextera, it floods all the time. They can't even keep gravel on it. We have huge ditches. We're in the watershed. It's horrible. I mean, you bring this on, our roads, I don't know how you could control the runoff. Industrial solar plants are a significant deviation from the vision of the comprehension plans that Kansas counties have adopted. Article 9, Johnson County, zoning regulations, rural designated areas are intended for the preservation and protection of rural areas as well as agricultural areas in the rural district. These districts are further intended to preserve and protect open space and natural resources. This is directly off the Johnson County zoning website. I'm not making this up. Permitted uses in these areas, in the rural areas, agricultural uses, agricultural buildings and structures, permanent single-family dwellings, railroad right-of-ways, home occupants, passive open space natural preserve, and park areas owned by the public, the citizens. Boarding and training stables, which we breed performance horses, and we also run cattle, and we also farm hay, which the herbicide will affect all of those. Industrial solar plants are a significant deviation for the vision in counties, communities, adopted comprehension plans. County comprehensive plans are a reflection of what the community and citizens project for their areas in years to come. Families and businesses have made decisions to invest in the area based on these plans for the future. The families and businesses that are going to be impacted by living near or around industrial solar plants are not being taken into consideration, compensated for, or listened to by the county officials. Once industrial solar plants projects have been approved by the county, Kansas citizens immediately are going to be financially impacted. These citizens' health and right to quiet enjoyment of their property are going to be in jeopardy. Kansas citizens need solid information going forward on what the vision is for each community. Current comprehension plans should be adhered to so families and businesses that have made life decisions are not harmed by industrial solar installation plants. There is a place for industrial solar plants where counties have mapped out areas that are for the purpose of industry, and industrial solar plants do fall under industry. Placing these facilities in an area that encompasses hundreds of families with children and babies is not a suitable location and will cause harm. There's $365 billion that's available in the form of tax credits for the installation of renewable energies. There's a mad dash to get their projects in production at least 10% by the end of this year. We are all in an uphill battle because you can go look at the media. The media, most of them are owned by Wall Street or hedge funds. Facebook, Google, they all are tied in to benefiting from the tax credits. The man that owns my company, they made $1 billion last year on tax credits from renewables. I understand they want to do this fast and furiously. The easiest way for them to do it is to take class 1 and class 2 farm ground and put it under solar panels. It's cheap, it's easy, but they're going to have a fight. There's not one person here that's going to go down with a fight. If we have I'm sure this will end up in courts. My brother's a trial attorney. He owns his own law firm. He took on Monsanto. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with that case in Texas. And I asked my brother, I said, Terry, what do we do? He said, well, he said, Cindy, by the time it's done, your water's polluted, your ground's polluted, your real estate's not worth anything. There's cancer. There's women are not able to carry babies. Children have leukemia. He said the devastation is so great. There's not enough, it makes me cry. There's not enough money that's going to fix that. And that's what we'll be. We're not going to walk away quietly.
Thank you, Cindy. For sake of time, so the committee can ask some questions, we've got about 9 minutes. However you want to divide that up. Up next is Lisa Hoopy, who's a Huppy? Sorry, Lisa. I took a shot at it.
All right, you took a good shot.
Okay.
We do that all the time. I'm Lisa Huppy. I'm a lifelong Kansan, love my state. I've lived in Johnson County all my life, and I've been a realtor for the last 20 years. So thank you for hearing us this afternoon. I'll be quick. The location is the number one thing that people are looking for when they're looking for a home. Everybody knows that, or they should. Location. They're going to be looking at, when they're shopping for a new home, being located within a mile from an industrial utility scale solar facility has a potential and perceived health risk. Ecosystems and water sources will be impacted. The view from your front door, your kitchen window, or from the deck or in the yard with your children when you're playing catch, those things impact your decisions. All of these things play into the marketability and the value of homes. We provided you with several studies from Mary McClinton Clay showing how home values have been affected by these facilities across the nation. They go from North Carolina, they're in Pennsylvania. I'm not going to go over them in respect of time, but you can see that the property values have devalued up to 30%. Our friends here in Wabunsee and Potawatomi say that they've heard their values of their land and their properties could devalue by 40%. In perspective, a $400,000 home would be decreased by $120,000 at just that 30% devaluation. I'm sure none of us would like to see this. The only way you overcome the objection of location or an undesirable view, which we will surely see, is through price. Every time it's price. So the studies that you're going to review, these are real life scenarios. They're not made up. They've been looked at by appraisers and have actually happened where people would not purchase a home because between contract and closing, they found out that there was going to be a utility scale solar farm across the road, and they canceled their offer. And they also were asked, would you take this home if we reduced it by $50,000? And they said no. They were in the construction industry, and they wouldn't reduce that by any amount of money with that solar facility going in across the road. That's a big deal. Just think about that. So remember, we are not opposed to solar or wind energy. We are opposed to these industrial utility scale solar facilities that will directly impact people and the choices that they make. The non-transparency that you've heard about today, where these non-disclosure land leases were signed up to 3 years ago by our neighbors. Me, as a realtor of 20 years, I'm also a manager of 100 agents in Leawood, Kansas, and I'm with a company that's also owned by Mr. Buffett. And we have 3,000 agents. Not one of those agents know about what's happening in our county because it's a hush deal. This is unacceptable. We have to really work on being transparent with these types of projects that impact what people are doing and the choices that they're making for themselves and their livelihood. Wanting to construct a home, we have new homes going up down the road from us as well. This is happening all over Kansas, not just where we are, but this is personal for us, right? But we are also concerned about all of the citizens in Kansas that could be facing this. So just know that location is going to be completely impacted. The decisions that people make, their lives are going to be impacted. The hard-earned money that they spend is going to be impacted. There's also another case where the citizens that were impacted for a new subdivision, their values were impacted and they went to their counties and had their valuations decreased by 30%. So tax dollars were taken away from that county as a result of that as well. So on a personal note, I was driving home this morning and excited to see the farmers out working the land, taking hay to their cattle, the new calves bouncing about. These are the things that people look at when they're choosing a place to live. And if we allow these industrial, utility scale solar facilities to go into these green spaces that are full of life and people, over 200 homes, 200 families, we're not doing a service to the citizens of Kansas. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. And we've got about 4 minutes left for Joyce Whittier. Joyce?
My name is Joyce Whittier. I'm probably the only person that has read the minutes from 2017 through 2021. But I want to say that I found some disturbing facts as I was reading through them. Our due process rights are guaranteed to us by the 14th Amendment. It says no state can deprive the public of its property, among other things, without due process. Before we even knew about the solar farm, Mr. Iliff made this comment on February 23rd. I just read a long report in The Economist on utility-scale solar installations in the United Kingdom. What they're finding is that they are universally unpopular with the people who live in the neighborhoods around them. I do think that we need to anticipate the complaints or the objections that we will hear in the future. Simply by anticipating them, they can be headed off in some ways. So he is telling the other members of the commission.
And he's the chair of the Johnson County Planning Commission.
And has been since at least 2017. And from the minutes of 2017, I can infer that he was chairman for at least 4 years prior to that. And I had to, opaque just doesn't come close to describing the process. There is no, excuse me, the Planning Commission will not give you a copy of documents, of videos, anything, unless you file a KORA request. I've filed more than 40 of them since September of last year. And this is sort of another issue that came up. Carrie needed to file a KORA request with the Lawrence Douglas County group, and it was a different form. Now, the Kansas Open Records Act is a state law. There should be one form that applies to every organization and every zoning commission, no matter where they are. It should always be uniform. It just makes it more difficult for the people to find out the information they need. One of the things I discovered through the KORA request was that none of the members of the Planning Commission had signed an oath of office. Some of them have been serving for 42 years or more. None of their staff has signed an oath of office. That's a state law. They are required to do, yet they did not do it. I'm going to go briefly through Mr. Iliff's conflicts and Mr. Hutchins. Mr. Iliff.
1 minute.
1 minute.
Sorry, Joyce.
Okay,
Yeah.
Mr. Iliff failed to disclose at any point in the last year that he and John Peterson worked together at Miracle of Innocence on the board of directors and the legal team. He was back in place in January. Randall Hutchins, who is a member, he's been a member since 2017, had numerous ex parte contacts with landowners. That's prohibited. That's considered bias and prejudgment. And he also sold his home in May of 2021 to a young couple without disclosing its proximity to the solar farm. And that directly he violated one of the codes of ethics that all of these people are supposed to abide by. And, in closing, I would like to point out that The bias on Mr. Iowa's part was so sufficient because he was the chairman that if a lawsuit is filed, his bias is grounds for a remand to make them start over. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you, everyone, for testifying today. I want to leave a few moments for the committee to ask questions. There's a lot to unpack here, a lot of information here. And so I appreciate the committee's attention on this because I think this is going to be an issue going forward. And if I could ask one question before I turn it over to the committee, was there any public meetings at all before the solar farms were announced or any intention? In other words, what kind of notice did anyone have prior to this being put into the county? Carrie?
There was no official notice. The only notice that ever happened, because of the non-disclosures and the lease agreements with the participating landowners, they couldn't talk about it. The only way we found out about it 3 years after the first lease was signed was because the Lawrence Journal World caught wind of it, and they published a small article with the footprint, and that opened up a lot of concern from people in Lawrence that get the paper. We're in southeast Douglas County and southwest Johnson County. We didn't hear about it until that hearsay filtered down, and first time I heard about it was September of 2021. So that's over 3 years later, and who knows if that was really the first ground lease that was signed back in July of 2018. But transparency, I don't understand how this can even be legal for conditional use permits to be used to change the comprehensive plan and the entire long-term plan of a community. We need your help to make sure that people are protected, not just for property values and for the backyard. Don't use the word NIMBY with us, because it's a real slap in the face. This is not about not in my backyard. This is way bigger than that. Way bigger. This is about the state of Kansas and the livelihoods of farmers and agricultural businesses and homesteads and people. Does that answer your question? There have been no public meetings by the developer or the county, nothing. It's all just filters through the people.
Gotcha.
Not just that county, Stephen.
Yeah, just state your name. And that was Carrie Brandon, by the way. So just state your name.
Hey, I'm Stephen Holes from Wabunsee County. A year ago in early February, I guess it was, NextEra came to me for some ground, to lease some ground in Pottawatomie County. And when they wanted to put together several thousand acres of contracts, the guy told me this. In order to present, when they have them all signed, to go to the county commissioners in after the fact and let them know that they have this many acres ready to go and throw it on their desk at that point. But what I did as soon as I went along for a while in order to get the contract and everything, to get copies of things. But I called up the county zoning department in Pottawatomie County. And I was the one that told them what was going to be happening. Told them that that NextEra said they want it to be the largest solar farm in America and the world, right there to replace the Jeffrey Energy Center. And so that's how Pottawatomie County found out about it. As far as hearings, they started putting together zoning regulations and things through their planning commission. And the only hearing that they had was just recently was March the 3rd in the evening. And then they was going to have one last March the 10th, but the snowstorm, I guess, canceled it. I don't know if they rescheduled it or not. But this is 12 to 14 months after, the original stuff. And they wanted our ground, my wife and mine's ground, to put a substation and everything on. So we was one of the first ones that got our doors knocked on. Then for Wabunsee County side, in January, I went up to the zoning department to find out about some zoning for some other ag stuff of mine. And I joked with them about something because this guy said that we'll build you schools, we'll build you bridges, we'll whatever the county needs, we'll write a check for it in order to come in and do it, that pilot deal, based payment in lieu of taxes for that 10 years, see? And so I said, well, why worry about the bridge anymore over the Kansas River? I said, the solar company's just going to pay for it. And they said, oh, by the way, there's a meeting tonight about that. So I stumbled upon that, and I'm the one that started making phone calls to my neighbors and everything. And if it wasn't for this, it's flying all under the radar. There's nothing in the newspapers. No one wants to write about it. And not only that, they don't want stuff in their papers for fear of backlash, where they won't get advertisements and everything. That's what's going on.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're running very short on time. I've got a little bit of committee business to do, so I'm not going to be able to entertain any more questions. Committee, before we close, I do want to try to approve the committee minutes. They were sent out on March 9th in one batch, and then Monday in another for February 10th, February 14th, February 15th, and 16th. And then the second batch for March 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 7th, 8th, and 9th. And committee, any comments? Motion to approve the minutes from Senator Olson, second from Senator Fagg. Any comments? Any discussion? Senator Francisco?
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask that we change one statement on the minutes for February 10th. This was comments from Brad Lovelace from Wildlife and Parks. The sentence is, he stated broad terms in the bill defining public hunting area and public park need to be narrowed. Neither of those terms were defined in the bill, so I would like it to say, he asked that the terms public hunting area and public park be defined to be narrowed. I can get that information.
Can you get that to Sheila and work with her on that? Okay. We have a motion and a second on the minutes. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you, committee, for your work. We appreciate the time. We are out of time, and we will have a presentation tomorrow. With that, we are adjourned.